My testimony starts at the beginning, like everybody else's. I was born into a family with three other kids, so there was four of us. I was the oldest of four, so needless to say, I was very headstrong, very rebellious, and it was interesting growing up. Not everybody gets along with their siblings and with their parents, and me and my dad would be very different. I was more of a free spirit. He's very logical and, direct. And so we had some conflict there. There was a lot of conflict between me and him. And that really was a crucial thing in my life that was missing. And I mean, you know what? Everybody has their own baggage and their own past and their own hurts that they're working through. And as a mother myself now of four kids, I'm realizing how much comes out of you when you're dealing with your kids that you didn't even know was there. And so my dad had a lot of his own baggage that he hadn't dealt with yet, and I was no easy child, for sure. So there was a lot of conflict, and basically I grew up thinking I wasn't smart, I wasn't like him, I wasn't smart, book smart, and so in my head, it means I'm stupid. So I kind of went on a downward spiral in school. I just didn't bother trying anymore. Thankfully, I graduated high school, but I just didn't care. Like when I was a teenager, I was at a point in my life where I didn't care. Thankfully, my parents are saved. They were praying for me. My grandmother was praying for me. And so God did have his hand on my life. And they did drag me to church. We went to an Anglican church all my young life. And I had experienced God. I knew he was real. I didn't have a doubt that he was real. And thankfully, he showed himself to me over the course of my young life, and always reminded me that he was there. But being the very rebellious young girl I was just like, no, I want to do things my own way. And basically, it got to the point when I was finishing high school, where I come from, basically your life is almost laid out for you. You go to school, then you go to university, then you get a good job, and then you have your 2.4 kids, whatever that means. And then you work for the next 35 years of your life, and then you retire and do the fun things. And so I had no idea what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a vet. I wanted to get into the army. I had like all these and my parents really wanted me to go to university. They were, but I didn't know what I wanted to take. And I thought, well, what's the point of going for 4 years and wasting all that money if I don't even know what I want to do? And and my attitude was awful. I was an awful influence. I was drinking and partying and sneaking out of my house, and they had no idea. They were blissfully ignorant of what I was getting up to. But really, in my heart, I was a very, very angry person. You wouldn't think so. But I was extremely angry, just full of rage, because we were very well disciplined when I was a kid, and we weren't allowed to talk back. We weren't allowed to, really say what we thought, or else, you got soap in the mouth, or you were grounded, or whatever. And so I had a lot of pent-up rage in my heart, and I was just a totally different person than who I am today, totally different. And so basically all of that culminated into this kind of 1 year, my last year of high school, where my parents basically gave me an ultimatum and said, you either pick something in university and go, or we're kicking you out of the house. And then it just so happened that some friends of theirs from church, their daughter went to this thing called YWAM, or Youth with a Mission. It's a missionary training thing for young people. And so that was tacked on to the ultimatum kind of a little further on. And it absolutely terrified me because I didn't know what I wanted to do in university. I didn't want to move out because where my parents live, it's really expensive. So it just terrified me. And I thought, well, really my only option here is YWAM. And I'd started dating this guy at the time, and I thought, I'm going to have to leave him. And I mean, he was not a good influence anyway. But I was basically at a crossroads. And thank God for his mercy, right? Like even when we're just, that verse, even when we're so rebellious, when we don't even know him and we don't even care, Christ died for us, right? And so in his mercy, he as well gave me an ultimatum. And he said, you can either keep going the way you're going, doing things your way, or you can try things my way. And as much as I was like, I thought, well, what else is there? You know, what have I got to lose? My parents are pulling their hair out and they're ready to get rid of me. And, you know, even though they love me. So I chose YWAM. And so I applied. I must have been in the autumn of 2000. I got accepted for the winter school of 2001 in Hawaii, in Maui. Not too bad. I know, suffering for the Lord in Maui. And basically what this program was it was a 6-month school. So for 2 months you go and you basically get immersed in different topics like inductive Bible study, cross-cultural communication, the Father Heart of God. They have different speakers come. And then for the last 2.5 months you go on an outreach to a third world country. And you basically put into practice what you've learned. And you go and spread the gospel. And so when I left in January of 2001, and it was all my parents could do to get me on that plane, I did not want to go. I was just resisting, but I knew, in my heart, I knew I had to go. So I got on a plane, flew like over 5,000 miles to this little island in the middle of the Pacific. And, you know, God is faithful. When you just take that step, as hard as it can be, boy, does he ever meet you, doesn't he? And he met me there. And I found out I was going to Uganda on my outreach for 2.5 months, which was like actually a dream come true, because I'd always watched the World Vision with the little African kids. And I was like, even as a kid, I was like, oh, I'd love to go there and see those kids and all. And literally when I found out I was going to Uganda, I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And it's like, God met me there. And he literally started that process of transformation. You know how Paul talks about, you know, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That word it's the word metamorphosis, right? And we all know that the caterpillar doesn't turn into the butterfly straight away. It's a process. But my goodness, is it an amazing process. Hard, but so good. And so that started my journey of healing, of forgiving, of being forgiven. And so I finished that school and I went home, and I think my parents were like, wow, okay. Like just so different. And, you know, I think they had this idea in their head that, okay, she's going to come home and then she's going to get serious and go to university and all. And that didn't happen. When I was there, I knew the Lord wanted me to come back. So I said, no, I'm actually going to go back and volunteer on staff, because nobody gets paid. Everybody's a volunteer. And they were like, right, okay. So that started a whole life. And I ended up volunteering with YWAM for about 4.5 years. I led teams to the Philippines, to Thailand and Bali. I did a school of worship, a school of inductive Bible study, so just specifically on studying the Bible. And it was a school of worship that ended up bringing me here. My team came to Belfast it was only meant to be 2 weeks, but it turned into 6 because our plans fell through in Scotland. We ended up getting connected with a church. We ended up staying, and I remember looking out onto the cave hill from the window of the flats we were staying in, and I remember the Lord saying, what would you think if I asked you to come here? And I was like, really? All right, I'll give it a year. You know, my vision for my life was living on an island, doing surfing ministry with young people and doing worship. I was thinking like Tonga, Fiji, Samoa, Tahiti. And, you know, and I actually said before I left YWAM, so like in 2005, the start of 2005, when we were leaving here, I remember saying to the Lord, okay, I know my time with YWAM's almost done. I'm not quite sure what you want me to do, but I want to live on an island. I want to be able to surf. I want to do worship, and I want to work with young people. I just didn't specify the temperature. Seriously. Because I was thinking like tropical island, right? Having lived in Maui for on and off 4.5 years. And so, but that kind of humorous and yet very serious note has actually sustained me through many years, because I came over on my own. I was single. I was lived in Belfast for 6 years in a flat. And like, there was a lot of times where I'm like, I am done. I'm going home. I'm fed up. I'm sick of this, And it was that reminder that the Lord said, but I've given you what you've asked for. I'm like, dang it. So be careful what you ask for, but thank God, because this is home now. This is, this is where my heart is. And I'm just in awe of how God can change a life, and how, it's almost cliche, the way Christians kind of throw it around, but how deep the Father can go to the depths to reach and save a person over and over and over and over again. He is so faithful because he knows our hearts. He's so faithful to just pull us back up again, And I think, what a heavenly Father. So yeah, we're all still in a process. I'm still in a process of being healed and all this stuff, but my goodness, this is freedom. Isn't it? Isn't this freedom? Like knowing Jesus, and like that, I love that song, being called out of the grave, being called out of that tomb into his marvelous light, and there will be darker days, but his light never goes out, and we are the light of the world, and we are the salt of the earth. And it's just like he's given us his power. We are powerful. And we need to learn to believe that. We are not in ourselves, but in him. We are powerful. And the word, when it's in our mouths and in our hearts, can change atmospheres, can change people, can change places. So there you go.